Hey guys, welcome back to the Ask the Irish Lad channel, and today we're going to be running over 7 tips to improve your building. First of all, we've got this kind of starter house we've built here. Now, this is a house I see builders build a lot. So we're going to be getting this and running through some tips to get us a bit of a better house, as we saw in the thumbnail. My first tip would be to add a bit of colour. So for here, for the roof, I've added spruce as a contrast to the oak that is the wall, and I've added in stone there in between the wall and the stairs. Step number 2 is to add some extra details. These are unneeded details, but things to make the building a bit more attractive. So that would include windows, a chimney, and I've even added a window onto the roof there. Now, tip number 3 is kind of where the building takes form. This would be to texture it, add some depth. Okay, so running through each and everything individually, you can see in the roof I've added a trim of deep slate. Deep slate because it kind of contrasts the stone and the spruce. It works well for both colours. Now for the chimney, I've added a bit of detail in here. I've added a campfire, so it is functional. It does let out steam or smoke, which you always want something to be functional where it can be. Coming down in ground level by the wall, we have a trim going around and going around the sides as well of this stripped oak logs, which I find very useful because it's a great it's the same color. It is the same color as the oak planks, so will always do you well. I've also added a bit of depth by using these oak stairs around the windows and around the door. And something you can always do is add sort of an outline, which is sort of a support beam. For this, I've used stripped spruce logs, as I think that's the contrast that works best. Now up here I've detailed the stone wall, where instead of just being purely stone, I've added in some stone bricks, some cobblestone where it could be rough, could be falling apart, just to add a bit more realism into it. Now, as a border, because it's a relatively small build, I've added in this kind of spruce trapdoor trim, a lot nicer than this would be if it was going along here. But this is one of the support beams as well as the ones on the side here. Coming in on the 4th tip, which is a very crucial tip, and it's something you'll have to think about before you start the build, is the scale you want your build to be in. For example, these builds are all on the kind of small scale. This would be a bit of a larger scale. The walls are always 4 high, and then the ceiling's on the 5th block. Now for this, all I've done really is just repeated our last build, but just kind of up the scale. So for the rest of this, I'm going to use a larger scale because I personally think this looks a lot better than this. One thing you're going to have to be careful about though is if you're using a larger scale, make sure to keep it either odd or even, and you have to decide if you want your building an odd number wide or an even number wide. That's down to the roof, as you can't put slabs down. And also, if you wanted to add support beams, it looks very odd when it's even. It looks very odd when it's even, wow. But yeah, that's why I've added in these spruce trapdoors. Also, as it's bigger, I'd suggest you kind of add in a more detailed door. For example, this, I've added in trapdoors in the back on a completely other block. So this block is completely vacant. Tip number 5, I tell you, is also when you're planning the building, choose an interesting shape. Not something you'd kind of find difficult building, but I've chosen this sort of odd T shape, but it kind of has a wing coming off the house, and I really like it. So you're going to have to always be careful on the shape you pick. You can always change your mind later, but you know, it's an important factor. Number 6 I'd kind of give you is to be expressive with your kind of roof shapes. Don't be too afraid, but always stick to what you think looks right. For example, in the main part of this house, I've used a very triangular or equilateral, or what's the one? An isosceles triangle here, which is two sides of the same, and those are the two sides that go up. Now you could do this higher and taller potentially. However, for this one here, I've done one by one by one by one going right up. However, on the side, I've kind of had this arch, which I do by adding in a stair, then a block, then a stair, then a block, then a stair. Then it slabs on the top to cap it off. But yes, and then 7, the final tip, probably the most key for kind of if you're expanding off your building, it is landscaping and its surrounding areas. For example, I've put in this path here with leaves and berry bushes and some lanterns for lighting. Now, lanterns can look pretty, but they also resist mob spawning, which is absolutely crucial if you're playing in survival or hardcore. Another thing you could do is add in some trees. This is a custom tree I made very fast, but you can always find your own designs or even make your own designs for trees or spawn in-game ones. But folks, that is it for the 7 key building tips. Slam my desk there. Also, if you are a viewer of the channel, I would say to you right now, I have a new mic. This is my new mic. What do you think of it? And even if you aren't, please tell me what you think of my new mic. Now, thank you very much for watching, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe and drop a like if this has been helpful. And I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.